Hello and welcome to our talk today, which is all about marketing without the mask. It should be quite a simple approach to just show up and be yourself, but it's often not these days. And that's because we're flooded with a lot of shoulds and flooded with a lot of information that can make actually just showing up, expressing ourselves, sharing what we want to share, very, very difficult. So my hope is that by the end of our time together today, you will feel empowered to express yourself more freely without fear, and that you will feel confident about how exactly you can simplify your marketing, market your business authentically without having to fall into any of the shoulds or traps of things that are making marketing feel icky and horrible in the first place. So let's get started, shall we? We'll start with a little introduction of who I am. So if you've not met me before, I am Ricky Sullivan. I am the canine copywriter. I work exclusively with compassionate dog businesses. And that means I work only with dog businesses who are advocating for dogs' welfare, who appreciate dogs as sentient beings with their own needs and emotional well-being that needs to be considered by the humans they share their lives with. I am a full-time copywriter and marketing specialist, so that means that I either do the writing and marketing for people, or I have a membership called Underdogs Unite, where I guide our members on doing their marketing themselves in a way that feels compassionate, empathetic, and doable. And I have a self-paced course as well called Underdogs Unleashed, which you can access all year round, that will teach you all of the hows of marketing and help you find your way of doing it. It is not packed with shoulds, it's packed with options and explanations of how and why things work, so that you can cherry pick your way to doing the activities that feel right for you and do them in your own way. I am a massive advocate for animals of all kinds, two-legged humans, dogs and others. And what I try and advocate for in everything that I do is for all beings to have more agency in their lives, more freedom from fear, and more freedom to express themselves without being controlled or coerced or forced into anything. Really, I think all any of us want is to be seen, heard, and understood. I think that is the same for animals, and it is the same for humans. And everything that I do tries to help in some small way to make that possible. And by working with compassionate animal people, my hope is that I help you with that and help you with how to reach other people with similar messages, your messages, around how they can compassionately care for and look after the animals they choose to bring into their lives. So, introductions done. Let's get on to marketing stuff, shall we? So why do we hate marketing? And I say we inclusively. I really struggle with even calling myself a marketer because of all the negative connotations that go with it. Marketing is felt to be very manipulative, coercive, pushy. We're led to believe that there are right and wrong ways of doing things, and that kind of ties us all up in knots. Either we don't want to do it at all, and because it all feels sort of horrible and icky and like we can't be ourselves, or we fall into the trap of believing all of the narratives that are pushed at us, and we try and do them all, and that is just not possible. Most of us here, if you're watching this, you are probably either a solo business owner or you have a small team, and so it is not possible for you to be in all the places doing all the things in the way that a corporate conglomerate would, that has teams of people and lots of budgets to outsource those stuff. So that's a little bit about why marketing might feel horrible, and which leads me on to talking about why I think that we're absolutely crippled by shoulds. I think largely due to social media. Social media has got so many positive things going for it. I would likely not be delivering this here to you now, if not for social media introducing me to you and you to me, or introducing me to somebody who's introduced you then to me. I have so many friends now that share similar values and interests, who I can talk about all of this stuff with and loads of other stuff with, that I have met because of social media, who live all over the world. I can tell you now, locally to me, I don't have any friends who are passionate about animal welfare or who want to talk about dogs and behavior and well-being and emotions and all of the different kinds of rabbit holes I go down with the people that I've met thanks to social media. But there is a flip side of it, and I noticed that strongly myself, in that I'm targeted often by marketing content that is telling me all the mistakes I'm making, all the reasons why I'm not achieving what I should be achieving, why I can't have more and I should want more. Well, yeah, we're just indoctrinated, absolutely bamboozled with it all the time. And even if you're scrolling past it, it's still seeping in. And I think what that does is really kind of take us away from ourselves and just showing up and communicating as we would naturally, and instead makes us feel that there are lots of rights and wrongs and ways that we can get it wrong. There's also a fear of what people will think and what people will say, and will somebody say, oh, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't believe this, or I shouldn't feel this way. It is absolutely crippling. And I think it seeps into so many areas. Both in preparing for this presentation, a few weeks ago, I did a discussion with a bunch of people around blogging, and so many of the questions that people ask me are loaded with shoulds and can I's. Should I do this? Should I do that? Where should I focus my efforts? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it feels to me, I feel very strongly at the moment pulled less towards teaching specifically about marketing. I feel the need is much more strong for people to be given permission to be themselves, do what they want to do, experiment, be curious, try stuff, see what happens. And so this, whilst there are practical pieces built into this presentation, into this talk, I really am leaning more towards encouraging you to experiment and do things your way. So what's good marketing? We've spoken about bad marketing. What is good marketing? Is there even such a thing? I feel like there isn't. And there is absolutely such a thing as good marketing. Because when we boil it down to like, what are we trying to do when we're doing marketing? What does that even mean? What are we trying to do? We're simply trying to connect and converse and understand the people that we seek to help, or the animals that we seek to help. I feel that should, it's very hard. I'm really trying not to should all over the place, but this is how deep it runs. I believe that we can do that in a way that meets people where they're at and that respects their timelines. And we'll talk about that timelines more in a little bit. Good marketing is literally that, meeting people where they are, talking about the things that interest them, sharing the experience and expertise that you have and information that you have that can help people. It's honest, it's empathetic. So you'll see a lot of stuff about pain points and emotions in marketing. And the bad way of using emotions in marketing is to exploit people's emotions and their fears and their worries. The empathetic way is to acknowledge those emotions, talk about them, support people who are having those emotions, and that helps them know that they've landed in the right place. So we're not using those emotions against them. We're not saying, you're doomed, you already feel helpless, and you'll stay helpless if you don't buy my thing. We're saying, when you step foot out of the door with your dog, or when XYZ happens, you might feel X, Y, Z. What that does is, to the right people, it says, yep, that's me. All right, I'm listening. What else have you got to say? How can you help me? So that's the empathetic way to use emotions in marketing. Good marketing is clear, it's honest, it's not convoluted, it's not trying to take people down manipulative funnels for no rhyme nor reason other than to try and control them and get them to do what you want to do. It is helpful. It is about showing up, talking to the right people, helping them, and clearly telling them what other help you can give them if they would like to say yes. That is good marketing, and it is nothing to feel bad about. If you're doing it authentically as a compassionate person who's turned up to watch this, listen to this, if you show up as yourself and you're authentically there to help people, you're not going to do bad marketing because you wouldn't use any of those tactics in the first place. No, the more and more I think about all of this, the more I see some really interesting parallels. Obviously, I work with a lot of people in the dog industry, and we spend a lot of time talking about aversive methods and in terms of training and behavior and dog welfare, and how frustrating it is that those that people that choose to behave that way towards animals often are, more visible, seem to be at least booking in more clients, they have more influence. And so, a lot of the work that I do with marketing is about how can we get the compassionate people to be having the same level of visibility and impact. Aversive marketing is much the same, right? I'm nowhere near on the scale as a lot of the aversive marketers who show up and make a lot of big promises. And what these two individuals have in common, whether it's aversive training or aversive marketing, is that they make outlandish promises. It's all based on quick fixes, big results, and things that the more ethical among us probably wouldn't want to promise because we know that we probably can't deliver on it, or that if we can deliver on it, it comes at a cost. Because I think what most of us know is that it's not that these things don't work, that's not why we don't want to do them. It's because they are having a negative impact on other beings' well-being, on their mental health, on their physical health, on how they feel about themselves. Lots and lots of downsides to these things. Does it mean that they don't work? No. Honestly, marketing, just like dog training, if you want to do it the compassionate way, is slower. You're going to have to be more patient with it. It will work, but it is slower because it's not sensationalist and it's not making big promises and it's not putting pressure on people. Much the same as if you choose to work with dogs in a welfare-focused manner, we accept the trade-off that it's going to be slower. It's going to be worth it, though, because we don't want to make another being suffer at the hands of quick results. So I just wanted to raise that because I think it's an interesting point. And if you haven't spent much time in the marketing world, then the training side of things might help make a little bit more sense for you. Now, with these methods, what is the long-term outlook? What's the cost? What does it look like if you go one of these routes? So I'm going to lump the aversive trainers and the aversive marketers into a guru box. So typically that route means deadlines, high pressure, is very much focused on humans' timeline. Yeah, I want this and I want it now, whether I want to stop a behavior or I want people to buy this thing, whichever way it is, we're using pressure and tactics to get people to do things on our timeline, not theirs. Now, with marketing, what this can do is lead to buyer's remorse, and you may experience this yourself where you've been inside somebody's world, maybe you've attended a webinar or you've done a challenge, or for whatever reason, you're on their list for some kind of launch that they're doing, and it's got a deadline and they've bombarded you with information and it's got some kind of special offer or bonuses and a deadline. So you take action, you don't have breathing space to think, and then afterwards, you regret it. That's buyer's remorse, right? And you might regret it because you couldn't really afford it, or you didn't really need it, or you didn't really want it, or because it didn't deliver what you thought it was going to deliver. There's lots of reasons why that buyer's remorse might happen, but it's much more likely to happen when people are acting under pressure and under adrenaline fueled state. when you go this route, that means that you're on a hamster wheel, because you always need new people, because those people who have experienced that buyer's remorse are unlikely to recommend you, and they're unlikely to buy from you again, because they have negative associations with that experience. They felt pressured, pushed, they did something that they didn't really think through or didn't really want to do, and now they regret it. This approach is generally intensely focused on numbers and monetary outcomes. So on very tangible, quick, visible results. It's less about people. We lose sight of the people and we start focusing in on numbers. So I've worked with people who have been through these kind of marketing programs, and they come to me and they've got a spreadsheet and they're like, I need this number of people, and then my conversion rate will be this %. And that's the number it will spit out at the end. One, it can be practical to have a bit of a guide to set your expectations. What I find is it does is that it removes the people aspect. It removes you from why you did this in the first place, why you're doing it. And it stops you from thinking about people as individuals with feelings and lived experiences, and animals the same. And it starts making you think about numbers and money. Now, we all need to make a living. I'm not saying you don't need to think about money or numbers. But when we become too caught up in that, it can do quite a lot of damage in the long term. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is the compassionate route, which respects the other being that you are trying to form a relationship with, their timeline. So I always say people will take action on their timeline, not yours. What we can do is understand the different stages in the journey that they might be in, and what they need at each point in that journey to support them from moving from one place to another. A bit like you would if you were working with a dog who was having struggles. You would incrementally build on whatever it is, working to their timeline, not yours. You'd go at their pace. And compassionate route of marketing does exactly the same thing. It focuses a lot more on building trust and connection and relationship, rather than immediate tangible results. And that can be difficult to do because it relies on you trusting yourself and trusting the process, because it's not always visible that it's working. And so it does require patience. And again, I would say that there are probably correlations between that and working with a dog who's having struggles and going the patient route. You have to trust and notice the small signs that things are getting better and keep going, really. Now, when you build these long-term relationships and community, and you work with people on their timeline, and they have a good experience and they enjoy being a part of your world, that will usually lead to more word of mouth recommendations. So they will tell their friends or people that they know that need what it is that you offer, why you're bloody amazing. You become remarkable, worth remarking about and telling people about. And they are likely to also want to buy or invest in more help from you down the line, whether you have a new offer, a new workshop, a new product, a new something. They are likely to come back to you because they loved it so much and they stay in your world longer, and you retain them and get their recommendations. And not only is that great from a monetary perspective and an experience perspective for them, you're much more likely to enjoy the people that you're working with because you get to know them and they stay in your world. So that's the long-term vision. And I think that I've kind of alluded a lot already to this. When we work with animals, we're talking about building trust and relationship with them. That is just as important for the humans that we seek to work with, particularly in this day and age with so many horrible marketing tactics and so much awful stuff going on in the world. That trust can take a little bit longer to build. And it is really important that we give people time to trust us. They can only do that if we're showing up. So if we're not marketing, as in we're not showing up, we're not talking to anybody, then we're invisible. They can't build trust with us. They can't get to know you. They can't understand what you offer, how you help, what your values are, what you stand for. They can't know any of that if you're not showing up. And it also means that we need to market without the mask, right? Because they can't connect with you if you're not being your true self. So when I talk about marketing without the mask is all the shoulds and things that we, are constantly bamboozled with and told that we should be doing. That can lead to us like putting on different masks and trying on different hats and trying to show up in different ways. Maybe I need to follow this method or this formula. Maybe I should talk about this in this way, not that way. And one that makes your marketing much, much harder for you to do But because it's harder and because it's not how you would naturally do something or talk about something, there's likely to be a lot more inconsistencies in it, and inconsistencies make people distrustful, right? Well, the other day when she spoke, she was talking about this, or she spoke about it from this angle, or she talked in this manner. And now today she's somebody different, or she's saying something different. It doesn't breed trust. And that is, the most important thing that we can do with any being is show them that we're trustworthy. So people need to know that you exist. They need to know what you stand for, and they need to know how you can help them. This is an important one, because I think when we've been so indoctrinated and made to feel that sales is horrible, it makes us not want to put out any offers or do any sales because it feels pushy. And the truth is, if you don't do that, then people don't know how you can help them. I've been on so many great social media pages, and I consume all their content, and I really like them and I really trust them. And then I realize I have no idea what they actually do. Like, how could I work with them? What do they sell? Because they're never making an offer. They're never making an invitation. And that's all that it needs to be, talking about what services you offer, what do they look like, etc. And we're going to talk a bit more about that. But before we do, let's talk about, I'm going to answer one of the questions that came in before this talk, which was, what's the most important thing to market? Then should I be marketing my mission, my vision, my expertise, my services? And there were a lot of questions also about avatars. And I would just say now how much I hate all of that stuff, because it doesn't matter, right? Like, I've worked with big companies who've invested loads into these mission, value, brand, guidelines, statement things. They've got all these avatars, our avatar, our target client is Michelle. She's 45. She lives in a 4-bedroom semi-detached. She earns £56,000 a year. She's got 2 children. She drives a BMW. She shops at, nobody cares. This is completely irrelevant. It is a waste of time. What matters is that you're working with people who share the same values and beliefs or similar beliefs as you. That is when you're going to be working with people that you're happy to work with and they value what they do, and you're not trying to convince them. It's no longer an uphill battle. And that is actually far easier to do than anything else, because you just show up, be yourself, and you naturally attract people who like that. They're quite likely to have similar values, similar outlooks, similar beliefs, and similar wants as to what you can help them with. So, what is the most important thing to market? Who you are, who you're for, who do you help, how do you help them, what do you have to offer, what does that look like, what does it feel like, how can they say yes? So, as I was just talking about, making invitations for people to say yes, being clear, what's good marketing, clear about how they can take action. How can they say yes to getting your help? Do they need to book a call? Do they need to go to a specific webpage? What does the process look? These are the most important things to market. And, I think we've spoken quite a lot about this, but I think the biggest problem with doing those 4 things is that if you felt any length of time being uncomfortable with marketing, or, tied up in all these shoulds, that it can feel difficult to know where to start. If I'm not going to hoodwink people, if I'm not going to pressure them, if I'm not going to, scream at people all the mistakes they're making and all the reasons they're doomed, then what am I going to do? If I'm not going to be loud and obnoxious, and I just want to be myself, which is quiet and a bit introverted, nobody's going to listen to me. It's just a load of BS. You will attract people like you. There are lots of other people who also don't want to be shouted at, who also don't want to be told horrible things, and they will be attracted to hearing from somebody like you, if that's you. The truth is that you can be yourself, you can be honest, and you can extend gentle invitations that tell people how they can say yes. And the right people who want your help, who are ready to say yes, will do so. Sounds really simple, doesn't it? Now, the biggest solution that I want you to know, because you're going to continue being bombarded with all of these shoulds, so you might spend this time with me now and walk away thinking, okay, that's great. I am just going to be myself. And Ricky's given me some things to go away and try, which I'll be doing next. And I'm good. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go that route. And then you will continue to get bombarded by these messages, whether in your email inbox or on your social media. of people saying about all the mistakes you're making, all the, fail-proof plans, magics being that are going to make it all easier for you and make it all happen faster. And we are all vulnerable to falling into that trap, especially when we need to book clients in, or we're stressed, or, things are not going very well. We become more vulnerable to falling foul to that kind of messaging. And so the antidote to that is that I want you to know nobody can tell you exactly what's going to work for you. Nobody, not me, not anybody else, can give you a fail-proof method that is going to work specifically for your business. And that's because all marketing is experimentation. So again, a bit like working with dogs, you'll have methods that you understand why they work, how they work. And with some dogs, they will work. And with some dogs, you will need to try something different, and you will experiment and you will adapt based on what is happening in front of you when you do things. It's an experiment. Yeah. And there's only one way to find out what's going to work for you. And that is to try things, to be curious, to express yourself freely, to experiment. Try not to be too attached to outcomes, and just notice what happens when you try different things. And over time, you will see what works for you, and you can build upon that. You can, of course, learn about the different techniques or methods that you can use to market your business, and you can experiment with them. But I would say hold back on that, and first make a habit, or try and build a new habit of trusting yourself and just having a go and seeing what happens. Because if we try and do too many new things at once, we're going to become overwhelmed. So when you have practice taking off the mask, showing up, just speaking freely, expressing yourself, talking to your people, and that feels more natural and more easy, then maybe have a look at different marketing methods if you would like to, and know that you may have to adapt it to find the way that works for you and your business and your people, the people that you seek to connect with. Now this leads me on to another one of the questions that came in before recording this, which was, which platform should I be on for that avatar, my perfect avatar? Which method should I use? And my answer to that is there is not one magic platform or method that's going to outperform anything else. It is, TikTok will work really well for one person, email will work really well for another, a podcast could work excellently for somebody else, writing a book could work excellently for somebody else, being on Facebook might work, like YouTube. There's so many options, and none of them are any better or worse than the others. What I would say, and this goes back a bit to like ditching the avatars and just being yourself and naturally attracting people like you, again, in the interest of doing that and making it all easier on yourself, choose the platform or methods that you naturally use. Where do you hang out? Where do you go for information? Do you spend time on Facebook? Do you spend time watching YouTube videos? Do you spend time attending webinars? Do you go to local networking events? What do you choose to do when you're seeking community, information, help? And, if we're talking social media, what platforms do you naturally use? So I naturally prefer Facebook. I'll dabble a little bit in LinkedIn. I don't really like it. I'll dabble a bit in Instagram. Those platforms are much harder for me because they're not something that I naturally would choose to use. I understand how Facebook works because I use it. If you're trying to be on Instagram and you're naturally somebody who spent all their time on Twitter, you're not going to understand the functionality. You're not going to understand how people consume content. You'll start putting links in captions when they don't work. And it all just makes it an uphill battle. And you're also being forced to hang out somewhere that you wouldn't naturally choose to hang out, which makes it, harder. When it's harder, you're less likely to do it, which means that you're not going to show up consistently. And, we all hate that word, but that is where the magic happens, when you show up consistently. That doesn't mean every day consistent is like what is manageable and doable for you with your energy levels, your lifestyle, your wants, desires. But you do need to be showing up regularly so that people remember you when they are ready to say yes to help. And that is going to be far easier for you to do if you choose the platforms and methods that you truly like. Now, if you're sat there thinking, just answer me, what method? Let's look at some of the methods that you could try. So we've spoken a little bit about platforms, but we've not spoken about methods. Now, I would say number one. You don't want to do all of these. These are all options. You want to choose one or two that you gravitate towards and do them consistently. So if you like writing, that might be that you lean into email marketing, or you lean into blogs, or you write social media posts. You don't worry about doing videos and graphics and all the rest of it. You just write captions, little mini stories, little mini shares. If you hate writing, then do something that's talking. You could do YouTube videos. You can do reels, down the lens kind of stuff. You could do podcasts. You could do webinars. If you don't like doing any of those things on your own, and you like collaborating and bouncing off other people, you like being in a group, then do shared events with other people. Go and be on somebody else's blog. Go and speak in somebody else's membership or with their community. If you like writing, but you would like to you don't want to create one yourself that you've got to build regularly, write blogs that appear on other people's websites, or articles that go in magazines, etc. There are lots and lots of different ways to market your business. None of them are any more or less effective than any of the others. What will make them more or less effective is you doing them consistently and you doing them well. And you're more likely to do it consistently and well and find it easier if you choose the things that you're naturally drawn to. Equally, if you are somebody that has a small team, you'll probably find that there are people within your team that have different likes and hate, likes and loves and loathes. And so, sit down with this list with them and see what you've got within your team and what different people might like to do. And rather than trying to force people to do things that goes against the grain, that's like an uphill struggle, let them lean into their natural strengths. So we've spoken about methods, we've spoken about platforms. Now, here's the big question. What are you supposed to talk about when you're on there? I'm sat here with a blank page, or I'm sat in front of my screen. I'm going to record a video. What am I going to talk about? Knowing what to talk about can make us feel really, really stuck, especially when we've been indoctrinated with the right and wrong way to talk to people. I mean, you'd never meet with somebody in real life, or unlikely to, and worry, a client calls you up, or you've got a discovery call and you're worried about what you're going to talk to them about. You would just talk naturally, right? But for some reason, as soon as we put a marketing bubble around it, it feels very full of rights and wrongs. Really, what you want to do is talk about what you want to sell from every angle. And that sounds a bit crass, but here's what I mean. When you know what it is that you have to sell at the end, whether it's a product or a service or a course or whatever it is, then you can think about, well, who are the people that need that? What kind of problems do they have? What's their daily life like? What kind of questions do they have? Who are the people that I'm working with at the moment? What's going on? What happened at that session last week that we did together? Is there an interesting story about that dog? Is there an interesting question that came up on a discovery call? Was there an interesting moment when I walked through the park today or down the lane today that triggered something that would be interesting? Story or thought or opinion to share with the kind of people who need this help. Yeah, so we know who we're talking to because we know what we want to sell and who it's for. And now we can just tell lots of stories about what you do, why you do it, who you do it for, stories about, like I say, people that you're working with, questions that have come up, wins you've had, struggles you've had, misunderstandings you've had. There is never ending source of stories to tell within the space that you occupy with people and animals. And once you start doing it, you'll start seeing them everywhere, but you just need a little practice. If you're not doing this already, it's something new to try, and it will take a little bit of time to build that muscle. But as you do, you will find it become easier and easier. And actually what you might find is that you start seeing stories or posts or email, whatever method. We've just spoken about methods. I'm going to say posts. Could be a podcast conversation. It could be, anything. You'll suddenly have fodder, fuel to fill whatever method of communication you're using. That is all it is, right? It's a method of communication. You will have things to communicate once you start practicing. You work with people and animals. I mean, I've pretty much said this. If you're in a dry spell, and so you're not actually seeing any clients at the moment, and you're not having any discovery calls, you're not talking to anybody, you've got no inquiries, there is still inspiration everywhere. So you can have a quick scroll of social media and you are sure to come across something that will prompt an opinion, a story, or a talking point. You hopefully have some reviews from people that you've worked with before. So just because they happened 6 months ago or 2 years ago doesn't mean that they're not stories you can tell now. It doesn't have to have happened in the last week for you to be able to talk about it. So you can take a read through your reviews, remember the people and dogs or animals that you worked with, and you might find something within that you can use as a jumping off point for a story. What I often find is that, if I sat down to try and write something with a blank page, I've got nothing to say. I don't know where I'm starting from. So I have some prompts that I can use, and we're going to try one of those shortly. But I also find if I just sit back and listen to a podcast then with somebody I find inspiring or interesting, or on a topic I find inspiring or interesting, or read an article, suddenly I'm flooded as I hear them talking passionately about the thing. Suddenly I'm flooded with this for they too. What do you do though if none of those things have flooded you with inspiration? When in doubt, and even when not in doubt, ask a question. So ideally, we don't want to be marketing at people or talking at people. Ideally, we want to be creating a community where people feel safe to be part of that conversation and safe to express themselves equally. So how do we do that? We can ask questions. And on social media, it could be very simply asking a question like the ones you see on screen here. What do they wish they understood about their dog? What does their dog love? What worries them? What keeps them up at night? What's something fun they've done with their dog this week, etc. But it's not confined just to social media, right? If your chosen method of communication is a podcast or a YouTube channel, you could bring somebody else in and ask them questions and have a conversation with them to create your content. You could talk to somebody and create a blog, so like an interview type thing. There's lots of different ways that you can do this, not just social media, right? So the point is that whatever we're doing is communication, and we can have conversations with others that are part of our content marketing, for want of a better word. You can see how much I hate marketing. I don't even want to call it marketing or content creation or any of those things. That's how deep it runs. So questions can be really good. A good point to note about this, particularly on social media, if you don't at the moment yet have a very engaged community where people are freely leaving comments, then it is worth noting that when you first do this, you might be hit by tumbleweed. And that doesn't feel very nice. You've put yourself out there, you've asked a question and nobody's responded, and you're left feeling like, I am never going to do that again. Nobody wants to have a conversation with me. Nobody wants to answer me. And I would say that it's just a bit like you're having to practice and build that muscle of expressing yourself freely. The same will be true for people in your community. So one, the algorithm may not have shown it to them. Two, if they've seen it, they may be overthinking or feel uncomfortable with expressing themselves for fear of what people might think about what they say, or whether they'll word it wrong, or all of the same reasons that keep the rest of us trapped and feeling like we can't express ourselves. But there is a way to make it easier for them. So on social media, you can give them like prompts. So you ask a question and you give 3 different answers, or 4 different answers. Is it A, B, C, or D? Or pop an emoji, if it's this, put this emoji in the comments, etc. And that can make it a gentler experience for people to start engaging. And then over time, you'd be able to build that into more open-ended questions as people feel safer and more able and willing to be part of the conversation. And so before we wrap up, I have a little bit of a challenge for you. I, like I've said, use a lot of prompts to help me. So if I sat down in front of a blank document, I'm a writer, I like writing, that can be very difficult. Whereas if I use a prompt, it gives me a jumping off point. So I've got some prompts that I'm going to share with you. If you don't like writing, that does not need to be a barrier. You don't have to write on these prompts. You can speak on these prompts. So you could pick up your phone, put the video on and hit record and talk up into the prompt, or you could use a audio transcriber, something like Otter AI, and you could just ramble on the prompt and record it, and it will give you a transcript, and you could turn that into a written thing. All of that said, because this is something new that you're trying, I would like you to try it without being attached to the outcome. So think about it as an exercise that you're doing to build your self-expression muscles and to explore what you think about things, and to practice doing that without worrying about whether you're going to turn it into a social media post or an email or anything else. My dog is now barking in the background. She has no problem taking off her mask, let me tell you. In fact, this is my second time recording this half of this video because she barked all through the last one. So yeah, please excuse any odd noises in the background. That is what's going on. So you take the prompt. I'm going to show them to you in a second. I would really like it if you experimented with sharing what you produce with just one person, if you feel comfortable to, somebody that you trust and that you feel safe with. When you do that, I would suggest giving them some very simple rules before you share what you've created. The rule is no criticising, no advice, and no suggestions of what to do differently, even if they're well-meaning. We don't want somebody else telling us how we could make it better or what they would do instead. What we would like from them is for them to be supportive, to comment on anything that they do like about it, and to ignore anything that they don't like or think could be improved. The reason for this is that a lot of our issues around self-expression in whatever format come from decades of conditioning of people, whether it's teachers in school, family, friends, parents, telling us that there's a right and a wrong way to do things. There's a right and a wrong way to write, there's a right and a wrong way to talk, you should do this, you can't do that, that's not right, that's wrong. And so we're trying to work on deconstructing all of those shoulds and removing all of that conditioning, which is, you know, a lot of work. So when we're sharing this stuff with safe people and building this muscle and building resilience with it, we need to set some little rules in place to make sure that they don't do what comes quite naturally to most of us, quite frankly. Oh, it's really good. It would be even better if we don't need that. So here are your prompts, and you'll find them below in a document that you can download, because I would really like you to try this a couple of times, even if it feels uncomfortable, just for 10-15 minutes. Don't worry about the outcome. It's a practice in building your expression, your self-expression, and building your comfort with that. And what I will also say is it's amazing what comes up when you do this. Okay, so you'll start with one of these prompts. You can pick one of these to start with. Something you learned recently, a question somebody asked you, something you do differently now to how you did something before. You've got some more over here. A myth or common belief that drives you mad. A time you were wrong about a dog or a human or something else. One thing you wish every dog guardian knew, etc. So you're going to choose one of these, and you're just going to set a timer, and you're going to start speaking or writing for that length of time. When you start, you might find that you know, something I learned recently, I don't know, what have I learned recently? And it's all a bit rambly and you don't really know where it's going. And it might go off on a completely different tangent. Just run with it. You can't get this wrong. Nobody's ever going to see the prompt, and nobody's ever going to see what you produce unless you choose to share it with them. But some really interesting things can come up when you just follow the process and be curious about it. So I hope that you will use these and give it a try at least a couple of times. So you can download those below. Before we wrap up, I just want to kind of go over the key takeaways really that I'd like you to walk away with today. And that is that we're trying to make your marketing a lot simpler and removing all of those shoulds. So we want to try and let go of other people's shoulds, worried about it getting it right, worried about getting it wrong, avatars, missions, corporate nonsense that's just frankly a bit of a waste of time. Going to try and let go of worrying about what other people are doing and comparison. You know, these things are hard, but we're going to try and let go of them. And ultimately, we're going to try and let go of attaching to immediate outcomes and being a little bit more curious. That can be hard to do because we are humans and we like a feedback loop. But sometimes, particularly in marketing, that feedback loop can take a bit of time to come. People sit quietly, absorbing. You can't see them. They're lurking. They're enjoying what you're sharing. They're soaking it up. And suddenly down the line, they reply or they buy something 6 months after being in your world, a year after being in your world, and you didn't even know that they were there and watching. And that can be really hard, but that's why trusting in yourself and doing things that you enjoy make it much easier as you build that habit and that practice, because you're less reliant on other people's feedback to give you permission or encouragement to keep going. So try picking a medium you love
Try it for a little while. You might change your mind about it, and that is okay. You have full permission to change which medium you love. You remember, you do not need to be trying to do them all. Pick one, give it a try, stick with it for a bit. If you find actually it's harder or less enjoyable than you thought, pick another one and try that. Try and speak freely. That is going to be a habit and a muscle that you have to build, and it will get easier over time. But try, as we say, to let go of those rights and wrongs and just, talk about whatever you'd want to say. What would you do if you were in person with somebody? Do that. Try asking questions. Try new things and just see how they feel and listen to how they feel. If you don't like it, try something else. And try and make regular invitations. People won't buy stuff if they don't know what's for sale or what's on offer and how to say yes. So try and make a habit of, you're talking about something that you did with a client during a service. If you would like help with this kind of thing, here's how you book, or here's where you find more information. And ultimately try leading with curiosity, because all of this is just an experiment. Remember, nobody's got perfect answers for you. I'm sorry, you're going to see me fidgeting now because I'm trying to stop the dog barking under the table. My puppy is barking and bored. Try and be curious and experiment and follow your gut and try new things. And I hope that you've got something out of today. Now, obviously, this is a recorded talk, but I would still love to know if you've got any questions. I'm sure there's gaps or things that I have not covered because I am only human, and I'd love to know what they are. So please do either in the comments below or email me or DM me on social media and let me know any feedback you have or questions or things that didn't make sense. I'd love to hear about them and I will answer them. You can email me at hello@caninecopywriter.co.uk. Full transparency, without my mask, I am a bit hit and miss with email. So if you don't get a reply straight away, please do follow up with me. I would never ignore you intentionally. Just sometimes get a bit overwhelmed with staying on top of your emails. So please do nudge me and follow up with me. It would never be that I didn't want to respond to you. It's just that it's got buried. So please do follow up with me. And ultimately go forth and create freely in whatever medium you like most. And keep posted. I'd love to know what you're doing, how you're getting on and how it feels. And if there's anybody you know that you think would benefit from watching this, then please tell them about it. It's free and anybody can access it. And I would really appreciate you referring other people on to take off their own masks and find their own way. All right, I'm going to go tend to my barking puppy and I hope to speak to you soon. Bye for now.